microphone turned off? So you sure? Or you just have to press it? Okay, sorry, I'm gonna start now. This is Parshas Shemas. And what's Parshas Shemas? Yeah, so we're gonna talk about something in the Parsha. And I hope it looks a little normal. So I'm gonna focus on 3 psukim in the middle of the Parsha, which is says in my head, like, I'm really Mashemar. And I'll see what I have to say about this. Basically, so this is doing the Torah Zayavainig theology. And if there's any like pusik at all in the Torah which resembles a kind of biblical theology, it is the 3 psukim in the middle of Parshas Shemas. Was Moshe is of your Moshe and maybe a little if you want the same concept as in the whenever Vayru was steht Vayru Elohim Shaddai de Shem de andere Shem, and in andere Wörter the way wieso the Pusik rift talking about God or wissen wer it is or what it is or how it is talking about his name. And in general the Chumash is obsessed with name and Sachen. Zum on every hello. As we need to be quiet and explaining what names mean, and it seems to be very significant. In the same way, in the same framework, when it talks about God, the basic question is about what God is would be phrased in the Chumash. What is God's name? And it's doch interessant, dass es ein Muschel oder ein Reben oder eine Stamme coincidence, as the Parsha heißt Parshas Shemas. So it's the Parsha of names, and it's not the name of God, it's the name of Bnei Yisrael, von Bui Mitzrayim, aber Stam, ob Yisod, ob Rebus, ob ich weiß was, geht es zusammen. So what did I want to say? I forgot. So now about what does it mean? So I'm going to actually talk about the concept of naming, and actually it's a bit far-fetched, but the Nikkidah is richtig. And the Nikkidah geht also, basically, was Moshe, Stam, der erste Ure, was Moshe sagt, Hinai Neuchi Kul Bnei Yisrael, Amrili Mashemai. So it's a bisschen, mit Tracht wegen dem, it's a bisschen the mirror image von anderen Pusik, Parshas Yisrael, Hinai Neuchi, was Eibischte sagt, Hinai Neuchi Boi Leichu, Ba'avu Unan, Ba'avid, Yishma, Hu Amid Avri Imach, V'gam B'chu Yamini Lo'ilam. Das heißt, das ist dasselbe, ich habe gemerkt, das ist dasselbe 3 Wörter, Hinai Neuchi Boi Leichu. In other words, over there is God coming to make people believe in Moshe. And here it's the opposite. It's Moshe coming and saying, Ich gehe Kinei Neuchi Bu, al Bnei Yisrael, nicht dass machen Glauben in God. Or whatever believing in God means. And so it's interesting to see these 2 psukim and how basically, in andere Werte, ich kann sagen, was ich meine zu sagen, wenn ich sogar das ist der einzigste Pusik, es redet sich mit Theology. Because of course there's the very famous Pusik, wo steht in Neuchi Hashem Lekeichot, wo steht Shema Yisrael Hashem Echad, wo steht andere Sachen, sagt Lielich Olim Achayrim, und es andere Psukim, wo sind obsessed mit nicht dienen, aber der Sura und solche things. But es ist ja ein Stück über Kirch, und der Mefarsch, sie Yamina, der Neuchi Hashem Lekeichot ist eine Mitzvah, das ist noch also wie ein Dua, also ist es. And without Chakiren gerne an die ganze Stige, ich meine, es ist richtig, der Zeit, es ist ja eine Mitzvah. In andere Werte, also nicht, beide Seiten sind gerecht. Das heißt, es ist nicht du kein Mitzvah von der Minne, es ist nicht du kein Kanzel von der Minne. Es ist du eine Mitzvah, sie sehen, also Neuchi Hashem Lekeichot, nicht zu dienen, Alim Achayrim. Und in andere Werte, die ganze Chimisch, nicht du hast ein Missig, was man geht jetzt reden, lass uns das verstehen. Just understand God. Let's talk about what theology is. Chachmas in the kiss. Ich habe gesagt, was in the kiss. Nicht du hast gesagt, du sag was man darf dienen, beachas sie in the kiss. Man darf dienen da bestehen, nicht die andere Gatte wissen, dass es nur 1, nicht 2, nicht 4, und andere solche Sachen. So the Rambam or whoever was right that Anach Hashem Kech was a mitzvah, and in that sense, and in the sense that it's a mitzvah, it's not theology, because it's a commandment. Do Anach Hashem Kech, whatever that the response to that is, which basically is the Yiluch Olim Achayrim, the Pshat from the Pusik. Don't worship this God and not different ones. So the only time where I see something that is not a mitzvah, the mashmoy nicht fragen, was a mitzvah is, to wissen shmoy, is plain. Well, wissen, it's curiosity basically. Either curiosity or like proving it, or like trying to define this thing, this belief, or this whatever it is. So that's the only time where we have this kind of curiosity, which basically leads to theology, which is what God is and what God means and what's His name. What do I tell people? That's basically Moshe saying, okay, ich bin kommen to. So that's how I get the question if you think about the context. Ich komme ins des Snen, ich gesehen Malach Hawaii, Belavas Eich, die ganze Mare, und tit aus der Schicht, tit und der Schicht, Admas Koidesh, a Herz, a Hin, a whole major drama, a whole major revelation, which is Moshe's revelation. And nachdem, okay, so du sagst, dass du a message in this, du etwas zu tun, ich will guide the Eden. But what do I tell them about this? What do I tell them? Oh, this weird snare fire spoke to me and said that he's God. So you're gonna look at me, it's mal immer allein. Das ist immer tracht in dem question. Also, was kann ich sagen wegen they start is galus sich have, they start feeling or the nevia, the intuition or the whatever it is that made him see God in this snare. How do I respond to that? How do I respond? How do I what's its name? How do I tell it to the other people? Und so sagt Menschen, was haben vielen ist galus oder sagt man novi oder eine fehlt etwas, seht Gott in any sense, und das nicht, in etwas anderes. Und du hast allemal der Ende, das hat Schale, Maschema im Moemmer allein. Wie so, in Alpirov ist der Territz, hat nicht keinen Namen, ist nicht, du wirst zu sagen. And the other, the other time that someone asked such a question, actually, that was the answer, which is Yaakov Avinu. Which is Yaakov Avinu when he had a Malach come, or God, or whoever it was, translating them that time. And he said, "What's your name?" And he said, "What kind of a question is that?" And I don't care. That's not a question. And in general, Yaakov versus Moshe, and there's always looked as Yaakov is a mechzonis stigma draging Moshe. And in das heißt, and was uns rief in da, was is rief theology, which is like das ach Psikim of it. And when you das nicht am Psikim, do the alle Psikim was the theologians found, which is the Keshem Elohim, le das la vicho, was auch da bibshat meinen sind nicht echt knowledge as in knowledge of God. They all mean they're all trying to say make you do something. They're all more mitzvahs than knowledge, but I'm the rent for knowledge is over the sphere of the middle besides das. So ja, du hast amin missig in der Teure, was plain wissen, was ist, was es heißt, oder wie es rieft ist, oder wie es redet wegen dem. So that's the concept of that. And Moshe and Yaakov both relate to this concept. At least as I says, Moshe and Yaakov Liba. And Yaakov, which is, we can call it the first level, or the first answer when someone asks this question, was lich sagen wegen Gott, ist nicht zu sagen, gut nicht. Das Lomos et Tisch Lishmim. What's your name? In other words, God answers the question with a question. And Chazal sagen, Lefi Ma'asa and Nikro, and it's totally true. It has the God, or the whatever God might mean, does not have a name. And when you ask, okay, when I come in the Fried zu meiner Wabe, und zu meiner Kinder, also ich kann fragen, was ist die Nacht von Nacht, Jakob? Ich habe geschlungen mit etwas, Mensch dort. Weil was hingste, weil ich hatte einen Fight mit Gott, und habe gegeben, wer ist der Gott, wie sie heißt der? No idea. I know how my name is. I know my name is Yisrael, the guy that wrestles with God, as the people say. Because it is Elohim. I don't know what God's name is. And that's how also connects the Shemos B'nai Yisrael to Shemos. Because Yisrael is actually the name of the people that Yisrael are. They have some kind of meeting or kind of fight, whatever you want to call it, with God. And so that's in general, we don't know the name of God. We don't talk about the name. We only know what God does to us, or what we do to God, which is Yisrael, which is and Moshe Rabbeinu is basically the only time where God kind of gives an answer to what His name is, and that in that sense it's more primus. But the full Maße, what is meint, was meint nicht, Tamashi, lefi man avune, was das Shabli Pshato, wie weiß ich was. Ich meine, das ist eine Zames. So what Moshe is getting at here, and Moshe actually in all his life was kind of getting at that, and he was always asking God, I don't know what's going to do. And Moshe Rabbeinu had his own inner life. Ezra, if you could please be a little quieter, it would be very helpful. Ezra, that's for real. in Moshe Rabbani, this is the only. That's why the sneh story is so important, because it shows Moshe versus God without being Moshe versus the people. And in other words, Moshe, what all this time that he was leading the people, he was going, I'm going to Pada, I'm going to Hey, I'm going to Rost, I'm going to the Torah, I'm going to Zan Gerecht, Zan Nish Gerecht. He was always still Moshe, and he always had this kind of connection with his own Nevi'ah, which was the Sneh. And you see, and he was kind of, in the end, he was always using the people as an excuse. When he got the ganze Maas with the Eigel and the Ein and the Ein, it's ausgepelt, and Ezra, I mean quiet, for real. And in the end he says, okay, it's basically an excuse. In the end, all the things that Moshe did, they're all excuses for him to know God on a more real level than he had, and all God's techiyas. Like, don't know me, go get the Jews out of Egypt. And in the end, when at some point, I kind of not wegen the story from Kisisto, but in the end he's using it all as a jumping point to go back into his sneh, into his original, and this is the famous Chazal, so he has to Moshe put up a lot to think about in that. And in general, what Moshe is asking for is, I don't want to be Yaakov, meaning I don't want to only see this Lefimasa and Nikra, basically was the mind. What the mind is, as metunish sagen, metunish, medafnish, gave the name for God. And this goes back to this Pusik in Parshas Bereshis, as he had Likra b'Shem Havaya, and the Pshat was in some gelernt, it's not the Pshat, but the Pshat was in Lenin, is as up until that, in Bereshis Bud Elohim itself, God doesn't have a name, and Havaya doesn't have a name. The reason he doesn't have a name is because he does not need to have a name, because he just is. And all these having names, when actually as ich Likra Shem Shem, diese Chasal Tashes meint das Gorna mit der Sura, und es ist gegen die Pushte Pshat, was as ich Likra meint, but they're both true, because the second that you give God the name, you basically made God into an idol, because the word God is not God. The word God is just a word, it's just a name, and even though it signifies God or it points to God, it's still not God. And that's why giving God a name is the start of problems, the start of not understanding God. And a lot of what we do, a lot of after religion exists already, a lot of what we have to do in order to know God, in order to have theology, is to unname God, to give him less names, because all these names, like Nois, Burichat Hashem, if you realize, every time we say Burichat Hashem, you're giving a name to God. God is He who gave the Torah. God is He who does this. God is He who take us out of Egypt. And these are all levels of mitzvahs. These are all ways that people relate to God, but they're not God. And they become into names, meaning they become into Avedazuras. Sag nur recht, man sagt, du a ganze Slicha, Misha Unel Avram Avini Anaini, Misha this, Anaini, Misha that, Misha all kinds of things, Anaini. And basically, what the saying is that if I weiß nicht wer, so versucht man nicht, it's all the same thing, also der Joke, wie viele Avini Malkani ist, das ist nur eins. Aber es ist nicht nur eins, was jeder Avini Malkani ist ein anderer Name für Gott. And jeder muss sagt, Misha Unel Avram Avini Anaini, das ist ein Sort Gott, und das ist Misha, und wenn ich sage Mi, das heißt, der, was es gewähnt, ich weiß nicht, was es gewähnt, ich weiß nicht, dass es eine bessere Ekdure. Und jeder eine von denen kennt seine zweite Gott, das kann das doch sagen, wenn ich mal kein ist. And that's why I say that, really, we have to go first in the way of Yaakov, which is the unnamed God. Say,
maybe it's the opposite, maybe the opposite. Until you name things that exist.
No, it just is, it just doesn't have a name. It doesn't need to have a name. And Yaakov, he said, is the first level. And in other words, I don't see God. I only see things that He does, supposedly. And that's all. That's all there is to say. And that's all there is to show. But now, what Moshe is actually getting at is to kind of unname that too. Meaning to say that since the second, there's a when the Rambam and the people say that take Lefi Masa and Nikru to its extreme, and you say that there is no God, but there's no definition to God, only what He does. In the end, you end up with like very kind of materialistic view of God, which is that God is only the things that happen. So there's only cars and buses and trains and worlds turning, Galgalim, or whatever you want to talk about, and it doesn't have any godliness to it. It doesn't have any knowledge of God, and whatever godliness means, it needs to have some kind of something besides for that. And what Moshe is asking really is that they, of course, they know they know this was something the Jews knew. Was fragt if only and this was the second answer that God gave him basically. But that's keeping them stuck in their situation, because as long as you see God in the Fimas and Nikru and the Pilois of that, as you're only seeing his Pilis, and it kind of gets you stuck a lot of times in the way of seeing Pilis and seeing God as just the sum of, not of the sum of, but just in these, there's only like God as an unsayable thing and just this world, or just like the things that happen, which is God. But it kind of gets you stuck in those specific things. And when Moshe is trying to take him out of Mitzrayim, which is kind of like to take God himself out of these things, out of being named only by these things. So it's actually a deeper unnaming. When Leibniz is also Moshe's question, and the answer is always relative to the question. It's always answering that question. Leibniz is ki eya imach eya asher eya eya. He's actually saying that not only the God that lives in your life is talking to you, it's also the God that lives not in your life. And this is, so it's an unnaming of the unnaming. First we unnamed God in Yaakov when we said that God himself is not a thing, and it's only the things that he does that we can talk about, and that's where we see him. And then we say that is also not God, it's only the thingness in itself, it's only the is in itself. And it's Eya, was ich bin nicht, and Eya itself is a name, but it's trying to say that which is actually behind, and that's the only Shem that can take someone out of Gudas, because Yaakov is actually the one that puts you into Gudas, because seeing that God is everything often makes people stuck in a very simple sense, because okay, so God is with me, and God is the Hashem is Yosef, and I say good, can't love in Tfisa, and it's only love in Tfisa, and it was a mind for the Shem Hashem itself. It's like the Shem is in Gudas, it gets shown only in a very stuck place, only in this specifically, and in order to move from a situation to a situation, or from an aspect of God to an aspect of God, we need to go into an aspect of God which is even more unnamed, which is just God himself, like actually knowing God himself, not only knowing the nature, which is God's bilis, Maila Deis mind, knowing God, like the Rambam would say. And that's what Eya Shlachani Aleichem, and that's Eya. And then that brings us back to the actually Elahaya Vuram Yitzchak V'Yaakov as my guide playing the thing. So that's my basic theory about Shemos B'nai Yisrael, about Mas Shemoy, and that's all. Zloma Gittin Shabbos, and try to understand what we're talking about maybe.